Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you are all doing okay. Okay. Hey MD, hey Rangar. How's it going, MD? How's it going, Rangar? I'm doing pretty good. Um, so for the first little bit, I'm just gonna kind of explain why I haven't been able to stream for the past week or so. Second part, we're gonna catch up on the book, because that's what this stream is for, to catch up on this book. So if you all don't remember, it's Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell. It's by Chris Colfer. It's actually a series, so again, if you all want to go, it's going to be either at Barnes & Nobles or Amazon, so you can get at either one. No, I am not sponsored by them, but I do like books, so I will always recommend books, regardless of where I am, who I am, what I do. So for an explanation first, as you can see, I had a wonderful Valentine's Day. I got a very big bear. It's 4 feet tall. It's very big. Second, what was I going to say? Texas had a really bad winter storm. Two, in fact. One, I believe, was on the weekend, and then the other one was on a Tuesday or Thursday. It was really bad for a lot of people. Some people had their lights out. Some people didn't have Wi-Fi. Some didn't have water. In my case, my lights flickered a while. They flickered maybe every couple days. It was just depending. My water pipes bursted. Me good, you in Texas. Did you meet Oji son? No, I didn't really leave my house, especially since my work was canceled. So I didn't really get to go anywhere. You know 3 people in Texas. That's pretty cool, though. But yeah, there wasn't much to do because there was a winter storm. Here in my part of Texas, we did not get any snow, which is, great. Perfect, that's fine. I've seen snow before. We got it for maybe like a couple minutes at like 3 in the morning. Yeah, no worries. I'm just going to be explaining, and then eventually I'll be reading a book, so you'll be good. But I appreciate the lurk, MD. Thank you. So what else did we have? So yeah, a lot of people had snow. A lot of people had different things. There wasn't much else that happened. My work, I didn't work for a couple days, and then I did go back to work. I went back to work on Saturday, which, kind of sucked because it was like the Kanto event for Pokemon. So I didn't get to really do much of it. But that's fine. I really need to work on stop saying every time. Trying to think of what else that I had to explain before I continued on. Counter? Yes. I need an counter, actually. That would be funny. So every time I say it, someone can be like, add one, add one. I think that's actually a thing I can do. But we'll try it for next time. I think that's everything I had to explain. I'm pretty sure. I'm just trying to think over in my head what else I had to explain, because I know there's a lot of things that happened. Well, we can celebrate the fact that we are at 107 followers. I gained 2 followers while not streaming for the time. Emmy see Warrior 18, which I know personally in person, and she's great. I love her. Thank you so much for the follow. And then Amy Play from Rangar from your stream. I know her. Or them. I'm going to say them because I don't know their actual pronouns. So we're going to say them. I know them from your stream, Rangar. They also followed me. So again, thank you so much for the follow. Yeah. So now we're just going to get into... I named it Monday Midday Makeup Stream Session because I am making up the fact that I did not get to read to you guys for the time being. So this is basically going to be the reading stream to catch up. We'll play games probably next stream. But I said it again. I just noticed I said it again. Hi. As usual, it's great to have you all here. I appreciate you all whether you talk or you don't. After every chapter, I do like to ask what you think may happen next or what you think will be significant maybe in the next chapter. So if you'd like to put in predictions or anything like that, I know I can set up a poll for what you think might happen. I could set up predictions, whether one of them will beat the other in whatever they have to do, things like that. So we'll be starting with Chapter 6, The Dwarf Forests. And I do not know if you all remember that, but we're going to go ahead and continue. So, Chapter 6, The Dwarf Forests. I packed you some food, a couple of blankets, and a few gold coins I've been saving, Froggy told the twins, and handed Connor a sheepskin satchel. Thank you so much, Alex said. It's so kind of you. Now, when you say food, what exactly are you referring to? Connor asked, holding the satchel a safe distance away from him. Some rolls and apples, Froggy told him. Oh, good, Connor said, relieved. Froggy handed Alex the map and journal they had been looking at the previous night. Are you sure you're ready for this? Froggy asked them. You're both awfully young to be going on a quest like this. Alex and Connor looked to each other, each thinking the same thing. It was hard enough to navigate around their own world at their age. Could they really travel around a different world altogether without the help of an adult? But the twins found reassurance in each other's eyes. They knew that through it all, they'd at least have each other. We really don't have any other choice, Alex said. Thank you so much for all your help, Froggy. We would still be lost in the woods without you. Froggy smiled widely and nodded. Of course, he said. I should be thanking you. I rarely have an opportunity to feel so useful. Are you sure you don't want to come with us? Alex asked. A map is great and all, but a tour guide would be better. At first, Froggy's smile grew with excitement as he was tempted by the idea. The thought of traveling out into the world and leaving his hole-in-the-ground home was so alluring. It was clear he could feel the temptation throughout his entire body. However, his fears and insecurities about the outside world seeing him and what he had become erased the opportunity from his mind. I can't, children, Froggy said with a heavy heart, but I wish you the best. The twins were disappointed, but they understood. It was difficult for them, even to go to school with just a small blemish on their faces. They couldn't imagine the stress of facing the world as an enormous amphibian. It's very important that you get out of the dwarf forest by sundown, Froggy instructed. Go to the path and travel south into the Corner Kingdom. It's a few hours' walk, but you'll be safer there. Travel as quickly and quietly as you can. Promise me. The twins promised. Alex gave Froggy a big hug and kissed his cheek. Connor shook his hand, then wiped it on his pants. I hope we see each other again, Alex told him. That would be lovely, but for your sakes, I hope we don't, Froggy said, and winked. Connor clapped his hands. All right, those items for the wishing spell aren't going to find themselves, he said. Let's go. The twins pushed open the door and climbed up from inside the underground home. As they headed into the forest, Froggy waved goodbye until he was out of their sight. Soon, They were back on the dirt path they had landed on the previous day, and they headed south as they had been instructed. It was very unnerving for the twins to be alone on the path, now that they understood the dangers of the forest. They regretted not trying harder to persuade Froggy into coming with them. They jumped at every tiny sound the trees made. Alex and Connor remained silent for the first hour or so as they walked, afraid that their voices would attract unwanted attention from some of the creatures Froggy had warned them about. "We're very brave," Alex finally said to her brother, breaking the silence. "We're very stupid," Connor said. The path curved through the forest, revealing new trees and bushes every few feet. After some time had passed, the twins could feel their nerves and tensions calm. Their pace became slower and slower the more they walked, as they became more comfortable with being in the forest. Connor let out a long sigh. "What's that for?" Alex asked him. "I was just thinking," Connor said. Alice went to Wonderland after she fell into a rabbit hole. Dorothy's whole house was scooped up by a tornado and dropped her off in Oz. The Narnia kids traveled through an old wardrobe, and we ended up in a fairy tale world by falling through a book. "Where are you going with this, Connor?" Alex said. "I'm just saying, it's kind of lame compared to the others," Connor said with another sigh. "I wonder if there's a support group for people like us. You know, people who accidentally travel into other dimensions and whatnot." Alex was appalled. "Do you not get how lucky we are?" she said. "Think about all the things we're going to see. Think about all the people we're going to meet. We're going to be experiencing things no one else in our world ever has." Connor rolled his eyes. "I'll feel lucky as soon as we get back home." Alex reached into her bag and pulled out their map. Her eyes became fixated on it, and she only looked up every minute or so to make sure she wasn't about to walk into a tree. Every few seconds, she'd snicker or smile when she discovered something new. She looked like a tourist. "Shouldn't we be reading the journal?" Connor asked. "We need to make a list of the wishing spell items and find out where we can find them." "We will," Alex said passively. "There'll be plenty of time for that." Connor was getting frustrated with her. Did she not realize how serious the situation was? "We need to go home," Connor said. "What are we waiting for?" "There are just a couple things I would like to see before we go home," Alex told him. "What are you talking about?" Connor said, his volume and temper rising. "We're in the fairy tale world, Connor. We should make the most of it while we're here," Alex said. "Who else gets the chance to see Cinderella's palace, or Jack's beanstalk, or Rapunzel's tower in person?" Connor's mouth and eyes were wide open. He couldn't believe what his sister was saying. "We're stuck in another world and you want to go sightseeing?" he said. "Are you hearing yourself right now? Do you know how crazy you sound?" She stopped walking and turned to face her brother. There was seriousness and desperation in her eyes. "Connor, the last year of our lives has been horrible. We lost everything but Mom and each other," Alex said. "Every night I've wished for a fairy godmother to magically appear and make everything better. And now we're in a place where that is a possibility. I don't have friends to go home to like you do. The only friends I've ever known live here, and I'm not going home until I meet them." Alex continued walking down the path. Connor was absolutely dumbstruck. "Why am I being the logical one?" Connor questioned. "You're always overthinking everything. How are you not out of your mind with worry?" "What's there to be worried about?" Alex asked with a laugh. "For starters, what's Mom gonna do when she finds out we're missing?" Connor pointed out. "She'll think we were kidnapped, and she has enough to worry about already." Alex knew he was right, but her desire to see the fairy tale world was so strong that she was able to ignore him. "All I need is a day or two," Alex said. "That'll give us plenty of time." "How are you so sure these worlds run on the same schedule?" Connor panicked. "Think about it. The stories of Cinderella and Red Riding Hood have been around for hundreds of years in our world. But it seems like a decade or less has gone by here since. A couple days here, and Mom may be in her 80s when we get home." Connor rubbed his head. It hurt from thinking so hard. Alex was listening more than she wanted to. He was practically repeating word for word what the logical voices in her head were saying. "What if something happens while we're gone?" Connor asked. "What if we get back and apes or aliens have taken over the planet? If I miss that, I will never forgive you." Alex stopped walking, looked up from the map. A very odd expression appeared on her face. "Didn't think of that, did you?" Connor asked her. But Alex wasn't listening to him. Something else entirely had caught her attention. "Do you smell that?" Alex asked. What? Connor asked. All I smell are trees and dirt. Alex took a couple steps further. No, it's something else. It's sweet, like something's baking. Connor sniffed. Sure enough, a scrumptious smell was drifting through the air. It smells like gingerbread, Alex said. She looked at her brother with large, excited eyes. Oh no, Connor said. Before he could stop her, Alex took off running into the trees, away from the path, toward the direction the aroma was coming from. Alex, wait, Connor ordered. Come back. You don't know where you're going. Alex bolted through the trees, jumping over boulders and bushes as she passed him. The scent became stronger and stronger the further she strayed from the path. Connor was right behind her, urging her to turn around. Finally, Alex came to a halt, and Connor bumped into her. She had found exactly what she was hoping to see. A small gingerbread house sat in between two large trees. White frosting covered its pointed roof, gumdrops were clumped around like shrubbery, and candy canes lined the path to the front door like a picket fence. Look, Connor, Alex said, catching her breath. It's a gingerbread house, a real gingerbread house. Look how cute it is. Whoa, Connor said. I feel like I may get diabetes just from looking at that place. Let's go inside, Alex said, and stepped toward the house. Connor grabbed her arm. Have you lost your mind? Do the words Hansel and Gretel cannibalism incident mean anything to you? I just want to peek inside for a second. Only 1 second. The door of the gingerbread house slowly opened. Alex and Connor froze. A large hooded figure squeezed out of the door, then raised its head to stare at the twins. It was, undoubtedly, a witch, and although they had never seen a real witch to make a comparison to, she was more grotesque than they could have imagined. Her skin was wrinkled and pale with a yellowish tint. Her eyes were bloodshot and bulged out of her head. She was hunched over and had an enormous hump on her back. Hello, children, the witch said. Her voice was high-pitched and crackly. Would you care to join me for a bite to eat? It was impossible for the twins to hide their fear. They both stood still, staring at her as if she were a rabid Tyrannosaurus Rex, about to pounce on them at any moment. No, thank you, Alex said. We're just passing by. You have a lovely home. They slowly backed up, 1 foot at a time. Wouldn't you like to see the inside? The witch asked. The inside of whom? Connor said, and Alex elbowed him. Don't be silly, kitties. Come inside, said the witch, losing her patience. She extended an inviting, shaking hand towards them. They noticed it was covered in burn marks, perhaps from the last time she had visitors. I thought the witch died at the end of Hansel and Gretel, Alex whispered to Connor. Maybe she got hold of a fire extinguisher after they left, Connor whispered back. They continued backing away slowly from her. Thank you so much for the invitation, but we really need to get going, Alex said. We're on a really tight schedule, Connor added. We're meeting a couple of dwarfs for coffee in half an hour, so we better get a move on. They quickly took off in the direction they'd come to a jarring stop when the witch suddenly appeared in front of them with a pop. They tried running back the other way, but the witch just appeared in front of them again with a snap. They were trapped. Hey, Jatai. I'm currently reading as a catch-up right now, so I will catch up right now in a little bit. I'm just gonna finish the chapter. You aren't going anywhere, the witch said. She seemed to grow taller, and her eyes bulged bigger as her patience ran out. Now be nice, little chickens, and follow me inside. Alex, this is like one of those bad videos about strangers coming from the first grade, Connor whispered to her. Do you still have your kidnapping whistle? You don't want to eat us, Alex told the witch. We've been walking for a while, so we're really dehydrated. We're practically just skin and bones. The witch was definitely growing. Her hump shrank as her body rose higher. Your friend seems to be rather plump, the witch said, looking at Connor like a praying mantis about to strike. He has more than enough to spare. She was practically salivating. I beg your pardon? Connor was so offended. He forgot how terrifying she was. I'll have you know, I'm on the edge of another growth spurt, and I always get a little pudgy before one. Connor, please don't, Alex tried, but it was too late. Why do you want your victims chubby anyway? Wouldn't it be healthier if they were muscular and fit? Connor said. The witch looked to the side and raised an eyebrow. She had never considered this. Her consideration must have distracted her from attacking the twins, because she began to shrink back to her normal hump shape. If you ask me, Connor continued, you should turn your gingerbread house into a gingerbread gym and health club. Alex often couldn't believe the crazy things that her brother said, but this one took the cake. What a delicious idea, the witch cackled. I'll rebuild as soon as I'm finished with you. The witch began to grow again. This time her mouth opened wide and a set of jagged teeth grew out of it. She was going in for the attack. Alex screamed, Wait! With her hands covering her face, she said, You owe him! The witch recoiled into her smaller form. I owe him? She asked. Yes, isn't that how it works? Alex said. He presented you with an idea, and now you owe him a wish. A wish? The witch asked. A wish? Connor asked. Alex nodded convincingly. The witch grunted. Yes, the happily ever after assembly just enacted a new law, Alex said, thinking on the tips of her toes. Any witch presented with a good idea must return the favor by granting a wish. Yeah, said Connor, going along with it. Don't make Mother Goose lie down here. She'll let her geese loose on you, and some of them lay golden eggs, and that can't feel good. Who knows how aggressive they'll be? Fine, the witch said. I'll grant you one wish, but only because I don't want to deal with those fluttering freaks again. Connor leaned to his sister. What should I wish for? Should I wish to go home? He whispered. No, she'll try to trick us with whatever we wish for. It has to be really specific, Alex said. Hurry, child! I'm hungry! The witch demanded. Okay, said Connor, thinking as fast as he could. It had to be a good one. It had to help them get out of the situation. I wish you would become a vegetarian, he said to the witch. Alex turned her head sharply toward her brother. That's what you picked? Very well, the witch shrieked. The twins weren't sure if she knew what a vegetarian was. She reached her hands toward the sky and clapped, making a sound as loud as thunder. The twins ducked, but the wish appeared to have done the trick. The witch's hump faded away. The yellowish tint of her skin disappeared. Her bloodshot eyes calmed. I've lost my appetite, the witch said. She shrugged her shoulders, turned away from Alex and Connor, and walked into the gingerbread house, slamming the door behind her. Alex and Connor took a deep breath. Their bodies had never been so tense. That was a close one, Alex said. You're welcome, Connor said. How did you think of wishing for her to become a vegetarian? Alex asked. Connor scratched his head. It was the only sure way I knew she wouldn't eat us. Alex smiled at him. She wasn't given too many moments to be proud of her brother, so when the chance came, she soaked it up for all it was worth. Nice job, but let's get out of here in case your wish wears off. The twins hurried back through the forest until they returned to the path. They continued heading south, this time keeping to a faster pace. They had had their first dangerous encounter in Fairy Tale World, and they weren't in any hurry for the next. Alex and Connor had been hurrying along the path for a while when Connor said, Alex, I've got to sit down. I feel like my legs are going to fall off. Connor, we have to keep moving. It's already after noon, and Froggy said we have to cross into the Corner Kingdom before nightfall, Alex warned. Easy for him to say. He has frog legs, Connor said through heavy breathing. Just for a couple of minutes, and then we'll keep going, I promise. All right, but let's find someplace safe, Alex said. They continued walking a little further and found a pleasant opening between some trees. Connor found a fallen tree to sit on and catch his breath. Alex looked around at the trees in the forest, noticing they were all different shapes and sizes and shades of green. She was still bewildered by everything that had happened. It's amazing, isn't it? Alex said. All of this has been at our fingertips the whole time, and we never knew. She took a seat next to her brother, grinning from ear to ear. What do you think Dad and Grandma would make of all this? Alex asked him. What do you think they would say if they knew all of this was real? From the way they always did talk about fairy tales, you think they did, Connor said, and couldn't help but smile at the thought. I have 1,000 reasons why I wish Dad was still alive, Alex said, but now I wish it more than ever, just so we could bring him back and show all of this to him and Grandma. We have to get back first, Connor reminded her. And while we're on the subject, I think we should take a look at that journal. The sooner we read it, the sooner we can get back home. I know, she told him, but we should at least see a castle or palace first. Dad and Grandma would have wanted us to. Connor grunted. Alex, we just barely escaped being lunch for a witch. We can't waste any more time. The sounds of a few twigs snapping came from across the clearing as something approached. Alex and Connor ducked down behind the fallen tree, hidden from view. A cream-colored horse slowly traveled into the clearing. It picked up its hooves in a peculiar manner as if it had been trained to tiptoe. A woman was riding the horse, and she looked cautiously and around the clearing as they entered it. She was young and beautiful. Her eyes were big and blue, and her hair was half up and flowed into long golden curls. She wore a long maroon knit coat with black leggings and very tall boots. The woman and her horse moved covertly into the center of the clearing. "Easy, Porridge," said the woman, stroking the horse. "That's a good girl. Nice and slow." She hopped down from the horse and made her way to a tree. Alice could see that some sort of paper was pinned to it, and after taking a closer look, she saw it was the wanted poster for Goldilocks that she had seen the day before. The woman shook her head after reading it. She ripped it off the tree and crumpled it up. "Who is that? What is she doing?" Connor whispered to his sister. "Do I look like a psychic to you?" Alex whispered back at him. Suddenly, the woman's head jerked in their direction. Whoever she was, she had a remarkable sense of hearing. She drew a large sword from inside her coat and raised it high in the air. Her gaze was stern and determined. She was obviously someone to be reckoned with. She stepped closer to where Alex and Connor were hiding. A piercing wolf howl boomed through the forest. It was so loud that Alex and Connor covered their ears. The woman spun around and pointed her sword in the opposite direction of the twins. "Porridge, get ready. We're about to have company," she said. "Who?" Alex and Connor mouthed to each other. Creeping through the trees toward them were half a dozen wolves. However, these wolves were unlike any the twins had ever seen. They were 4 times the size of any normal wolves of their world. Their fur was jet black and matted. Their eyes were red and their snouts were wide. These wolves were ready to kill at any minute. Without a doubt, the twins had come face to face with the big bad wolf pack. Alex and Connor held on to each other, shaking with fear. The woman in the maroon coat never showed a hint of panic. She pointed her sword at the largest of wolves, standing in the middle of the pack. The wolves growled and gritted their teeth toward her. "Hello, Malumclaw," the woman said. "Hello, Goldilocks," Malumclaw growled. The twins were both in silent hysterics. "Goldilocks? That's Goldilocks?" Alex mouthed to Connor. "The wolf talks! It talks!" he mouthed back to her. "I'm surprised you're not chained down in some Red Riding Hood Kingdom jail cell yet," Malumclaw said to Goldilocks. "I'm surprised you haven't been turned into a rug for a child's nursery yet," Goldilocks said. "What brings you to this part of the forest? There isn't an innocent village for your pack to torment for miles." Goldilocks never lowered her sword. The other wolves in Malumclaw's pack slowly surrounded her and Porridge. "My pack is hungry. We've stopped for an afternoon snack," the wolf said. "Have you really come to eat me?" Goldilocks said. "I thought you'd have learned your lesson by now." "I bite back." She gripped her sword even tighter. Malumclaw laughed. "The wolf can laugh. It can laugh," Connor mouthed to Alex. "You are far too small a portion," Malumclaw told her with an evil wolfish grin. "Your horse, however, has plenty to go around." Alex and Connor had never seen a horse look as frightened as Porridge did. Had she not been so light-colored, they would have sworn she had gone pale. "If you so much as scratch her, I will wear you as a coat. Do you understand me?" Goldilocks warned him. "All people do in this world is eat one another," Connor whispered to Alex, and as soon as he did, he knew he shouldn't have. A wolf turned in the twins' direction. "Malumclaw, I think I just heard something," it growled. Alex covered her mouth so as not to scream. The wolf began sniffing vigorously in the air. "I smell 2 children. 1 boy and 1 girl." Goldilocks seemed as surprised as the rest of the wolves to learn this. So that was who she had heard behind her moments before. The twins could hear their own heartbeats. What was going to happen next? Was Goldilocks going to rat them out to save her horse? Had they just narrowly escaped being devoured by a witch only to be eaten by a pack of overgrown wolves? "I'm afraid you just missed them," Goldilocks said. "I frightened them away just like I frightened you the last time our paths crossed." "Then horse it is," Malumclaw declared. All the wolves howled together. It was deafening. They began circling Goldilocks and Porridge, getting closer and closer. The wolves snapped at them with their enormous jaws, and Goldilocks swung her sword at them. One wolf tried to pounce on Porridge, but the horse kicked him away with her hind legs. Another wolf tried to bite Goldilocks, but she struck him with her sword, drawing blood, and he whimpered away. Goldilocks was the best swordswoman the twins had ever seen. Any time one of the wolves got so much as a claw close to her or her horse, she was quick to shield them. Porridge wasn't so bad herself. She wasn't shy about kicking away any wolf that was too close for comfort. A wolf leaped and sank his claws into Porridge's back. The horse bucked to free herself. In one quick slice, Goldilocks chopped one of the wolf's paws off. He limped into the forest, howling in pain. Two wolves teamed up on Goldilocks. One leaped toward her, and she tripped over the other one. Her sword flew into the air and landed close to where the twins were hiding. Goldilocks was on the ground, unarmed. The wolves were closing in on her and the horse, going in for the kill. "Catch!" Connor yelled, and tossed the sword straight into her. Goldilocks swung it hard as the wolves closing in on her, leaving large gashes in their muzzles. "Retreat!" Malcolm Claw ordered his pack. "No snack is worth all of this trouble." The wolves stampeded into the forest, growling and howling in anger, letting the rest of the forest know they were on their way. "Until we meet again, Goldilocks," Malcolm Claw called out as he disappeared into the trees with the rest of the wolves. Goldilocks got to her feet and put her sword away. She was out of breath, and now that the enemy had left, much more vulnerable than she had shown in combat. She petted Porridge's nose and dabbed the horse's wounds with the fabric of her coat. "Good girl, Porridge," Goldilocks said. She turned and faced the fallen tree Alex and Connor were hiding behind. "You can come out now," Goldilocks said. The twins were hesitant at first, then Connor popped up and exclaimed, "That was awesome!" "Connor!" Alex said, popping up beside him. "That was one heck of a fight," Connor continued. "You know, at first I really thought they had you. I never expected a girl and her horse could be any match for 6 hungry wolves, but you impressed me. Where did you learn to fight like that?" Goldilocks was not amused by his enthusiasm. "When you've been on the run as long as I have, you pick up a few tricks here and there." She turned around and remounted her horse with a jump. "So is it really you?" Alex asked. "Are you really Goldilocks? The woman wanted dead or alive for all her crimes?" "Don't believe everything you read," she said sternly, then pulled on Porridge's reins and galloped away. But she only traveled a few feet before she steered Porridge back to the twins. "Thank you for your assistance," Goldilocks said. Connor nodded. "Here, take this, in case you need it." Goldilocks reached into the side of her boot and pulled out a silver dagger. She tossed it on the ground. "Now get as far away from here as possible. Those wolves will be back sooner than you expect." And with that said, Goldilocks and Porridge galloped off into the forest. Alex and Connor stood motionless, watching her ride off out of sight. "That was amazing," Connor said. He retrieved the dagger from the ground and put it inside their satchel. As terrifying as that was, it was kind of nice to see another human for a change. "We better get out of here," Alex said, "and this time we aren't stopping until we know we're out of the dwarf forests." Connor couldn't agree more. The twins continued down the dirt path, running this time. They had experienced more danger today than they had ever experienced in their entire lives. Unfortunately for them, it wouldn't be their last encounter with Goldilocks, the big bad wolf pack, or the dwarf forests. Okay, so that was chapter 6. Thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment. And thank you. These are most of the plushies I have. I do have a lot more. Just that since the house I live in currently is a little small, I can't have all of my plushies here. Eventually, I will hopefully have my own house and have a room that's basically full of plushies, because I do actually want to start Squishmallow hunting, because these are so cute. These are like super adorable. Hey MD, how's it going? Glad you're still here. So, chapter 6 is done. What do you all believe is going to happen in chapter 7? So, the title of chapter 7 is Rapunzel's Tower. I assume you can guess who they're going to meet from the title. So, we'll see. Yes, Squishmallows are so cute. I love them. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm here to listen to your voice. Aren't they rare? I think they are. It just depends, but you can also find them like online and stuff, so I don't really mind. I've tried Squishmallow hunting. I've gotten a couple of Squishmallows, but it's fine. I like the hunt. It's fun. It's fun to actually hunt for them because then you can actually see which ones you're getting, which ones you're missing, and you can even see like which ones are their friends, which ones are not their friends, because it always tells you, like, it has a little tag that'll tell you, oh, they have this friend named Christine, or they have this friend named Sarah, or whatever like that. So I like to go for them to see what other ones will be available. So what do you all think is going to happen next? I know you're probably like just here so you can listen to my voice, which is fine. I don't really mind. But I do want to know what you all's opinion is on the next chapter. Like I said, it's chapter 7 and it's called Rapunzel's Tower. So I think you can assume who they're going to meet here. I'm just looking to see how many pages this one is, so I can kind of give an estimate of how long it'll take me to read it. Okay, so it's 150, 127. It's about 30-some pages. A little less. Like 23. Yeah, 23 pages. Okay, so this shouldn't take me too long. Right? 23, 24. Just about. 24 pages. That's not too bad. Okay. So far, they have fallen into the land of stories, obviously, as what the book is called. They are trying to find the artifacts for the wishing spell. This is just a little catch up. So if anyone who wasn't here before is new to the story. And they have met a person named Froggy. Now they have met a witch. And now they will be meeting possibly another princess named Rapunzel. Hey Kazu, how's it going? I'm just catching up everyone on the so far what's happened in the book. We're already going to be going into chapter 7, which is called Rapunzel's Tower. And this is just a forewarning. If anyone messages right now, or in a little bit, if any of you all could go ahead and let them know that I'm just reading a chapter and I'll be with them in a little bit, that would be great. Because I don't want anyone to think I'm not paying attention or I'm not listening to them or I'm not reading. I am. It's just that since I'm reading a book, it's kind of hard to, keep up with chat if chat keeps going. So if anyone does come in, if you can let them know that it's just I'm reading right now and I'll get to them in a little bit, that'll be great. Because I don't want anyone to think I'm just ignoring them. Because I'm not. I appreciate everyone who comes in. I appreciate everyone who stops by. I appreciate those who follow, those who don't, those who just come in and go out for a little bit. Doesn't really matter. I like everyone to come by. It's fine. Again, this is a midday makeup stream session, so this is just to make up the reading that I didn't get to get done for the past 3 weeks. And we're going to continue on with chapter 7, Rapunzel's Tower. Okay. The twins had been running for almost an hour straight, and they were starting to feel it. Their adrenaline was slowly running out, and the pains in their sides were increasing with every step they took. But since something dangerous seemed to happen every time they stopped moving, they were motivated to keep going. After all this running, PE testing should be a breeze, Connor said through heavy wheezes. We're almost there, Alex said unconvincingly. Just a little further. The forest had changed as they had ran through it. The trees weren't so thick, and there were more space and grass between them. More sunlight fell through the branches, so nothing was in the dark. The path became wider, too, and much more visible. The twins didn't feel as threatened by their surroundings. The forest almost grew friendlier. the closer they traveled to the corner kingdom. Connor collapsed to the ground. He was breathing harder than a fish out of water. I can't run anymore. I can't take another step, he said, with his limbs spread out as if he were making a snow angel in the dirt. We can't stop moving until we get into the corner kingdom, Alex reminded him through her own heavy breathing. I think we're there, Connor said. How do you know? Alex asked. That's how, Connor said, and pointed upward. In the distance, a tall tower was visible above the treetops. It was circular and made of square stones. There was a single window near the top, just below the pointed roof made of hay. It was partially covered in thick vines of ivy. Alex gasped and clutched her hands together. It's Rapunzel's tower, Alex said, and her eyes became a little misty at the sight of it. Are you seriously crying? Said Connor, who was still on the ground. It's just how I imagined it, Alex said. Get up, we're getting a closer look. Alex yanked on her brother's arm until he climbed to his feet, and the twins walked through the trees until they came to the base of the tower. It was even taller than it looked, a few 100 feet tall at least. The twins' necks began to ache after looking up the tower for a while. A large golden plaque was displayed in the ground in front of it that said, Queen Rapunzel's Tower. It must have been so hard for her, Alex said, seeing people in places so far away and never being able to visit them. At least she never had to worry about burglars, Connor said. I've got to go up there, Alex said. Do you have a jetpack or a grappling hook that I'm unaware of? Connor asked her. No, I'll have to climb it, Alex said, surprising herself with the declaration. You have officially lost your mind, Connor said. We've almost been killed twice, and we haven't even been here a full day yet. We need to stop fooling around and find a way home, Alex. What part of that don't you understand? Look, Alex said. I'm going to climb up there just for a few minutes, and then as soon as I climb back down, we'll read the journal and find out what all the wishing spell items are, okay? Alex, Connor began. His face was turning pink. Please, Connor, Alex said. I need to do this, or I'll regret it forever. Connor shook his head with the frustration that only a sibling could cause. He wanted to lecture her about how childish she was acting, but the way she was looking at him with her big, wanting eyes prevented him. It was so rare that Alex ever needed something. He supposed one last stop couldn't hurt. Sorry. Don't kill yourself, Connor said. But while you're up there, I'm going to start reading the journal and make a list of the wishing spell items we need to find. Alex happily nodded and put her bag on the ground. She stretched for the climb she was about to make. Connor sat on the ground and began flipping through the pages of the journal. Climbing the tower was easier said than done. After searching through the base of the tower for a place to put her first step, Alex could tell why a long train of golden hair might be needed to get to the top of it. Eventually, she found a stone block large enough to put her foot in and take her first step. Here I go, Alex said. Gosh, I wish I had a camera. Trust me, Connor said. The real Alex I know isn't going to want proof of this. It was like climbing the world's most difficult rock climbing wall. She relied on cracks and chips and uneven bricks, sticking out just enough to put her hands and feet on. She moved slowly but carefully. If she were any larger, it wouldn't have worked. You're still at the bottom? Connor said, looking up from the journal after a few minutes. Shut up, Connor, Alex yelled back at him. I'm just saying, at the rate you're going, Mom's going to be 80 by the time we get home, whether there's time difference or not. After some time had gone by and she had gotten the hang of it, Alex moved more quickly, carefully pulling herself up using the ivy. The higher she climbed, the less she looked down at the ground, fearing it would tamper with her effort to reach the top. She was so determined to see the top of the tower, to be in the room where Rapunzel had lived, and to see what Rapunzel had seen through her window every single day. She wanted to be where somebody else had been during the loneliest times of their life. Rapunzel's story had always been easy for Alex to identify with. She felt she was in a tower of her own, looking at the world from an unreachable location. She was almost halfway up the tower by now, and she was above all the trees in the forest. Any tiny misstep would no longer result in potential injury. It would mean death. There's a reason the witch put Rapunzel up there, you know, Connor called up to her, so no one could reach her. I'm not listening to you, Alex said, and then stupidly looked down. Beads of sweat appeared on Alex's forehead. She felt like her heart had fallen out of her body. What was she doing? There was no way she could climb back down. Was she really risking her life just to see the inside of a tower? If she ever reached the top, would she be able to get back down? Would she have to wait until her hair grew long enough to climb before she saw anyone again? What would Connor do if she got stuck up there? Would he try to find the fairy tale world equivalent of the fire department? Would the ladder long enough to get her down? Or would he find the wishing spell items on his own and go home without her? The more Alex worried, the more she climbed. She knew it wouldn't be productive to worry and stay still, so she just kept going. It felt like hours had gone by. She looked up. She was only a few feet away from the window. Just a few more feet and she'd be there. Finally, she felt the windowsill with her hands and slowly pulled herself up to it, then through it. She was almost through the window. Alex swung her legs over the window and into the tower. Thank God, she said to herself. She might be stuck in the tower, but at least she was safe. She looked around the tower. It wasn't all what she had expected. It was a large, circular room with no furniture or decoration of any kind. In fact, it was completely empty, except for some hay and bird droppings littered around the floor. Hi, Alex, said a voice inside the tower. Alex jumped and screamed. She was completely shocked to see Connor sitting up against the tower wall just a few feet away from her. It took you long enough to get up here, he said with a laugh. He was eating an apple and had the journal open in his lap. How in the world did you get up here? Alex demanded. She was out of breath from her climb. I took the stairs, Connor said with a mocking grin. I was reading the journal. It says that after Rapunzel became queen, she installed a staircase in her tower so she could come back and visit whenever she wanted. The door to the staircase was on the other side of the tower. We just didn't see it. Oh, Alex said sheepishly. That would make sense. Apparently, since Rapunzel was the only known ward of the witch when the witch died, Rapunzel inherited all the land from her. That's how she became queen, Connor informed her. But you would have known that if you had read the journal. It's full of fun facts and helpful hints on how to get inside difficult places. I suppose, Alex said, and straightened her headband. She wasn't going to let this ruin the accomplishment she had felt after climbing the tower. She turned to look out Rapunzel's window. The tower was surrounded by a sea of trees. Far off in the distance, Alex could barely see the rooftops of a tiny village. Beyond the village was a large mountain range that rolled across the horizon. Now this was exactly what Alex had expected. It's quite a view, isn't it? Connor asked. Yeah, Alex said, almost in a whisper. It's breathtaking. I just wish we could see it all. Everything in the land of stories. But I did a lot of thinking on my way up here, and I know we have to get home. That's what we need to focus on. About that, Connor said. You really need to read this, Alex. I've only skipped through a little bit of it, but most of it's hard to read because it's written by hand. But the situation is much more serious than we thought. He handed her the journal. Alex sat next to him and opened it to the very first page and began reading. So this part is in the journal, like the actual journal in the book. So this is like basically a book in a book. Dear friends, I don't know how, why, or where you found this journal, but since it has found its way into your possession, I hope that it will be of use to you. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound ludicrous, but I ask that you allow me to explain. Had I not seen it with my own eyes, I would have never believed it myself. But I am a simple man from a simple village in the charming kingdom. But I have been to another world. It's a world with people and technologies that our world has only dreamed of, and places we can only imagine. I know it seems absurd, but I promise you that an extraordinary place exists out there. We just can't see it. During my visit, among the many things I experienced, I fell in love. I fell into a love so deep, it was unlike anything I've ever known. I never thought this kind of love was real, but as if I am no longer living for myself anymore, but for her. So I must find a way back. I must find a way back to see her again. The first time I traveled into the other world was simple. A fairy that knew of its existence allowed me to travel with her. She warned me not to get attached to anything or anyone, but while my brain was obedient to her request, my heart betrayed it. The fairy has hence banned me from traveling with her, so this time I must find my way into the other world on my own. Naturally, I didn't know where to start. How does one go about traveling into another world? Who was I even to ask? How would I even be able to ask without appearing like a lunatic? Cinderellian society is very judgmental, and I surely would have been ridiculed if my mission were discovered. I came to the conclusion that I'd have to ask someone who was crazy in their own right, so no one would believe them if they spoke of what I had inquired. I needed someone I could trust, but who would never be trusted by the world. I figured such a person didn't exist, and I lost hope, until I remembered the traveling tradesman. He was infamous for finding naive children in the woods and trading their items of value for items he claimed to be magical. He was rumored to have given Jack the beans that grew his beanstalk. Surely, if anyone had heard of another world, it would be him. He was on the move at all times, since warrants for his arrest had been issued in all the kingdoms. He would be nearly impossible to find, but then again, my entire quest was virtually impossible. Late one night, I traveled to a tavern up the stream from my home. There, I befriended two farmers, and I proceeded to buy them round after round of drinks. After we had a few laughs about childhood adventures and adolescent mistakes, I asked them if they had ever heard of the traveling tradesman. They both grew very quiet, and were almost offended by the question. I assured them it was purely out of curiosity, and I wasn't accusing them of anything. Purchased another round of drinks, and after they were consumed, the farmers convinced they had done business with him in earlier years. I traded 2 goats for a watering can that was supposed to magically water all my crops by itself. One of the farmers said, "The damn thing never worked, and it had a leak. It was the biggest mistake of my life." I traded 2 cows for a goose he told me would lay golden eggs, the other claimed. The goose was male. He gave me a gander. They tried convincing me to call off my search for him, but after one final round of drinks, they told me of the routes he covertly took through the woods. I must have searched every patch of trees in the charming kingdom. Finally, in the woods just south of the Red Riding Hood kingdom border, I found him. The traveling tradesman was an odd, elderly, disheveled man. He wore several layers of raggedy clothing, and he had a long gray beard. There were dark circles under his eyes, and one of the eyes wandered to the left, so it was difficult to tell what or whom he was looking at. He traveled with a large cart that was pulled by a single mule. He was making a deal with a small boy, holding a chicken when I first saw him. "Wear this bear claw, and you'll grow up to be the strongest boy in the village," the tradesman told the boy. Then he placed a necklace with a large bear claw around his neck and took the chicken from him. The boy smiled and ran off. The tradesman placed the chicken in the back of his cart. He must have made other trades that day, because he had already collected 2 geese and a pig. "Are you a friend or a foe?" the tradesman asked me. "A friend, I believe," I said. "Oh, good," he said with a jolly clap. "Then what may I do for you, friend? Would you like a bag of magic pebbles that grow into boulders? It'll cost you a duck. Or perhaps you'd like to trade a swine for a loaf of bread that'll make you never be hungry again." "No, thank you," I said cautiously. "I've come to ask you for advice." "Advice?" the tradesman said. The eyebrow above his wandering eye rose. "That, my friend, is something no one has ever asked me for." "What do you wish to know?" "I am wondering," I started, but wasn't sure how to put it into words. "What is the farthest distance you've traveled?" The tradesman scratched his beard and thought about it. "Well, I'd honestly say there isn't a place that in this world I haven't been," he told me. "I've traveled from the southwest to the northeast, from the southeast to the northwest. I've been from the bottom of the Corner Kingdom to the top of the Sleeping Kingdom, from the tip of the Elf Empire to the coast of the Fairy Kingdom." "What about farther than that?" I interrupted him, fearing he might continue listing every journey he had ever taken. "Farther than that?" Both of the tradesman's eyebrows were raised now. "What's farther than that? Only ocean is beyond that, and that's it." "What about a different world? Have you ever heard of one, or how to travel to one?" I finally asked. The tradesman got a funny look in his eyes, or should I say, eye. "Young man, I've been all over the world, and I have never seen any suggestion of there being another," he said. The topic upset him somehow, and he hopped aboard his cart and took the reins of his mule. "Wait! Please don't go!" I pleaded. "You youngsters always take pleasure in harassing an old man. Well, I won't allow it," he said. He began to travel up the path. I was so desperate. I stood in front of his mule and was nearly trampled. "I mean you no harm, old man," I assure him. "You don't understand. I've been to another world, another place and time, and I've seen extraordinary things. I need to go back. It may be the greatest wish I will ever have." My arms were spread out, and I fell to my knees. I felt like an imbecile, confessing a preposterous need to a preposterous man. The tradesman sat still, with his good eye fixed on me. "Is it truly the most desired wish in your heart?" he asked. "Yes," I pleaded. "I have never wanted anything more in my life." "If it's a wish you desire, then there's only one thing you need," he said. "What is that?" I asked him. "The wishing spell," the tradesman said. At first I thought he was joking. "The wishing spell?" I asked him. "You mean the childish legend?" "It's as real as the nose on my face," the tradesman said. "Many men have spent their lives trying to obtain it. Legend has it that if you collect a series of objects, place them in close proximity, the collector's one true wish will be granted." I didn't know whether or not to believe him. Perhaps he was harassing me now. My brain was critical, but my heart chose to learn more. "And how do I find these items?" I asked. "I don't have the slightest idea," he said. Now I was frustrated with him. All of that explanation for nothing. I turned my back on him and began heading home. "But I know someone who does," the tradesman called after me. "Who?" I demanded. "I never trade for free," the tradesman said, and extended an open palm toward me. I placed a few gold coins in his hand. He kept his hand extended, and I placed a few more coins into it until he was satisfied. "Her name is Hagatha," the tradesman said. "Where can I find her?" "Take this path west into the dwarf forest, past the 3 boulders, and then follow the smoke," the tradesman said, and that was all the direction he gave. He took the reins of his mule and traveled away from me. Had I been thinking clearly, I would have chased after him and asked for more instructions, but instead I took off running toward the dwarf forests. I had never been inside the dwarf forest before. I had been told of their dangers since I was a child, and once I was there, I knew why. I had been warned. The trees grew so thick and close that someone could be standing 3 feet away from you and you would never know they were there. It took 2 days to find the 3 boulders the tradesman had spoke of. There were 3 large rocks that stuck straight out of the ground and were tilted in a peculiar position. I thought perhaps they may have been pointing at something, so I lowered my head to look in the direction they pointed. The boulders pointed directly between 2 trees separated just enough that you could see a wide patch on the sky, and in this patch I could see smoke! I ran toward the source of the smoke. Wherever it was coming from was completely off the path, and I almost seriously injured myself jumping over bushes and tree roots as I went. Occasionally I could see the sky through the tree branches and could tell if I was off track. I must have traveled in circles for hours. Every time I thought I was just about to find the place from which the smoke came, the wind would shift it in another direction. I was lost. Every way I turned looked exactly the same. I felt as if the forest had swallowed me. The sun was setting and the smoke became harder to see. I started to panic. There was no shelter in sight. I thought for sure a treacherous beast would find me during the night and make a feast out of me. I started running again. I could barely see where I was going at this point. I could hear howling in the distance. I tripped and fell straight through a large thorn bush. I landed hard in the grass on the other side of the thorn bush. I was scraped, scratched, and bleeding. Got to my feet and looked around. I was standing in a large circular clearing in the forest, surrounded by a large wall of thorn bush. In the center of this clearing was a small hut with a hay roof and a brick chimney. And rising out of this chimney was the smoke I had been following. No wonder it had been so hard to find. I must have been wandering in circles around, not knowing it was hidden behind the thorn bush. I approached the hut slowly. It was 1 door and 2 windows, and that was all. I went to knock on the door, but it burst open before I had the chance. "Who are you?" said the woman who emerged from the hut. I knew from the second I saw her that it was Hagatha. She looked like a human tree stump. She was short and wore a brown hooded cloak. Deep wrinkles circled her face, and one of her eyes was squinted. Her nose was one of the smallest I had ever seen, and was neighbored by a gigantic mole. "Are you Hagatha?" I asked her. "How did you find me?" she snapped. "I tripped through the thorn bush," I said. "But how did you know I was here?" she asked. Her squinted eye squinted even more. "The traveling tradesman," I told her. "He said you knew of the wishing spell?" Agatha grunted and sighed at the same time. Her lips wrinkled and looked me up and down. Reluctantly, she gestured me to follow her inside. Come in," Agatha said. The inside of the hut was an utter mess. There were vials of strange liquids everywhere. Some bubbled, some glistened, some steamed. There were dozens of glass jars containing the strangest things. Dead and alive reptiles, insects of every species, even a glass jar of various eyeballs. Even though they had been plucked out from their owners' lids, I swear one of them blinked at me. I was surprised to see how many animals were inside the hut as well. Everything from geese and chickens to hummingbirds and monkeys all resided in the cages. They were all restless, prisoners, no doubt. Have a seat, Hagatha instructed. She pointed to a chair at the end of the table so large that it almost took up the entire hut. I see you are a collector of sorts, I said. She didn't welcome the conversation. She ignored me and collected a few items around the room. A bowl here, a vial there. The thorn bush around your home is very clever. It must keep out most unwanted visitors. Most, she said, and glared at me. That thorn bush is from the Sleeping Kingdom. I planted it here and grew it around my home in a perfect circle, just as it grew around the castle while the queen was in her 100-year slumber. You're the first to break through it. I do apologize. This will cost you 15 gold coins, Hagatha said, and took a seat across from me. For what? I asked. You want to know what the wishing spell items are, don't you? She asked. That is why you're here, is it not? I reached into my pocket and laid all the coins I had left on the table. Fortunately, doing business with the tradesmen had left me short. I only have 14 coins, I told her. Hagatha did not look pleased. You stupid youth, and your wishes. Very well, she said, and scooped up all the coins with one swipe. She placed a bowl in front of her and emptied the contents of 2 vials into it. One red, liquid, the other blue. One eye of an eagle, the wings of a pixie, and the heart of a newt, Hagatha said, and added these items into the bowl, plus 3 drops of giant blood, the big toe of an ogre, and the straw of gold hay. That completes the potion. With all the ingredients added, the liquid in the bowl started to smoke and glow. Hagatha leaned over and breathed it in. She closed her eyes and lost herself in a moment of deep thought. Does this potion tell you what the wishing spell items are? No, but it helps me remember, Hagatha said. You aren't the first, and you won't be the last person to request the list. Consider yourself warned. Many people have lost their lives trying to acquire these items. They are impossible to collect. I'd rather die trying than live the rest of my life wondering if I could have done it, I said. Then listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because I'll only say it once, Hagatha said. I leaned as close to her as I possibly could. The anticipation made every second feel like an hour. This is what I had come all this way for. There are 8, Hagatha said. She took a deep breath and then listed the items. Glass that housed a lonely soul up till midnight's final toll. A saber from the deepest sea, meant for a groom's mortality. The bark of a basket held in fright while running from a bark with bite. A stony crown that's made of share, found deep within a savage lair. A needle that pierced the lovely skin of a princess with beauty found within. A wavy lock of golden rope that once was freedom's only hope. Glittering jewels whose value increased ever preserving the false deceased. Teardrops of a maiden, fairy feeling, neither magical nor merry. I repeated the list to myself the entire way home, and wrote the wishing spell list and my journey thus far into this journal. I don't know how I'm going to gather these items, but my goal is to find them and record how I managed it, in case I ever need to do it again. If you're reading this, I hope it means I succeeded, and if you're reading this and are about to start a journey of your own, I wish you luck. Wow, Alex said, looking up from the journal. You can say that again, Connor said. You read that much faster than I did. Did you read any further? Alex asked. Did he find all the items? Did he make it back? I don't know. There are a lot of pages missing, Connor said. Alex scanned through the list of the wishing spell items. She hadn't expected them to be hidden within riddles. Most of these are pretty easy to figure out, she said. Like a needle that pierced the lovely skin of a princess with beauty found within. It's obviously the spindle on Sleeping Beauty's spinning wheel. And a wavy lock of golden rope that once was a freedom's only hope, Connor said. That's totally a lock of Rapunzel's hair. Connor looked around the space where he was sitting from between 2 floorboards. He pulled out a long lock of golden hair. Found one, Connor said. One of the first things I noticed when I got up here was how much that Rapunzel girl shed. Now we're 1/8 of the way home. Alex carefully wrapped the golden hair in a tissue from her school bag. What do you suppose? Glass that housed a lonely soul, up till its midnight final toll means? She asked. Whose soul was covered in glass? I know, Connor said. Cinderella's glass slipper. That covered the sole of her feet. Of course, Alex said. This list was spoken. Maybe Hagatha meant soul like on a foot, but the man heard it as soul like a person's spirit. Connor, you're a genius. There's an alternative spelling? Connor asked, but Alex went on. I wonder what the bark of a basket held in fright while running from a bark with bite means. said Alex, thinking hard. Basket, 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 bite, bite, bite. Little Red Riding Hood! Her basket must have been made out of tree bark, and the bark with the bite is talking about the big bad wolf. Okay, that would make sense, Connor said. Alex stood up and started pacing around the tower, glittering jewels whose value increased ever preserving the false deceased. That's a tough one. Who was falsely deceased? Didn't people think Snow White was dead after she bit into the poisoned apple? Connor asked. Yes, that's right, and said Alex, jumping up and down. She had a coffin made of glass and jewels from the dwarves' mines. That must be what it means. I'm so glad Dad and Grandma read to us so much growing up, Connor said. Who would have ever thought it would be this useful? Teardrops of a maiden fairy feeling neither magical nor merry. I guess we'll just have to find a fairy who has recently broken up with her boyfriend or something, Alex surmised. You don't think we could just kick her and make her cry? Connor asked. That just seems easier to me. Alex ignored him and vigorously flipped through the journal again. Glass zipper, check. Spindle, check. Coffin, check. Alex said. According to the notes scribbled in the margins, the author of the journal seemed to agree with our guesses. I still don't know what some of these things are, though, like a saber from the deepest sea meant for a groom's mortality, or a stony crown that's made to share, found deep within a savage lair. Like I said, there's a lot of pages missing, Connor said. Alex was disheartened by this. The items they knew of seemed virtually impossible to collect, let alone the items they didn't know of. She walked over to the window and looked out at the view. The sun was just about to set, and one by one the fireplaces in the village nearby were lit, and set trails of smoke into the darkening sky. What if we get some of these riddles wrong? She asked. What if we guess the wrong thing? What if the author guessed wrong? What if he never made it back? What if he died trying? We'll just have to do our best, Connor said, joining Alex at the window. Some annoying little girl told me once that optimism always pays off, and she's usually right about things. Alex smirked warmly at her brother. Okay then, she said. So far we have a lock of Rapunzel's hair. We still need to collect Cinderella's slipper, Sleeping Beauty's spindle, jewels from Snow White's coffin, bark from Red Riding Hood's basket, tears from a fairy, plus 2 other items we have no idea about. Connor gulped at hearing the list. They both looked out over the horizon and the sea of trees that surrounded the tower. Somewhere out there, all of these things were waiting to be found. It looks like we're going to see a lot more of the Land of Stories than we thought, Connor said. And that is chapter 7. Goodness. Hey, Sel. So sorry I missed you earlier. I was just in the middle of reading the book, so I didn't want to interrupt the reading. Yes, we are reading the same book. It's still The Land of Stories. I believe you only missed 1 chapter. Also, thank you so much, that glitched slash, for the follow. I appreciate it very much. I hope you do enjoy our story time. And thank you, Sel, for the hydrate or dihydrate. As you can see, I changed the name of it, so now it's hydrate or dihydrate. And yes, this is water. So, the next chapter is called A Hidden Place. What do you all think is going to happen? I don't necessarily remember because it's been a while since I've read this book, but it seems like it's going to be fun. So what do you all think is going to happen? Also, so the only thing you really missed is they started their journey. They ran into Goldilocks. And it's Goldilocks. They ran into Goldilocks and her pet horse Porridge. They had an encounter with the big bad wolf pack. And I believe that's it. Yes, that's about it. That was all that had happened within that chapter. So, they also met the witch from Hansel and Gretel. They met her as well. She was very fond of them at first, and then he gave her an idea. Connor gave the witch an idea, so then the witch had to grant him a wish he wished that she was vegetarian, and she therefore no longer wished to eat them. So that's great. They got out of being eaten, that's for sure. Come here. Look at Connor using his brain. Yes. Look at Connor using his brain. You want to get a treat, Mamas? Yeah. Yeah. You want a treat? You want a treat? You want a treat? The little pupper's sleepy. You're sleepy, baby. Are you sleepy? Are you sleepy? Yeah. Give me 1 second. You want a treat? Yeah. She behaves so well with clothes. Yeah, she's a little sleepy one with clothes on. If you can't tell, it's a Journey shirt, by the way. My little Chiquita is a punk rocker. She's a punk rocker. Punk rocker! Woo! 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 Okay, give me 1 second so I can get her that treat, okay? Okay. So here's the Chiquita. Sorry about that. You want a treat, Mamas? She loves her treats. Yeah? Say thank you. Thank you. She's shy. My little baby. Little baby. You're so cute, Mama. Okay. Go back to bed. Go lay down. There you go. Alrighty. So now, let me just put that is complete. There we go. Okay. Now, there we go. We're good to go. We're going to go ahead and continue on. So again, we're going to go out to chapter 8, A Hidden Place. If anyone comes in to say hi in the chat or anything, please let them know that I will get with them after I finish reading the chapter, because I don't want anyone to think I'm ignoring them. I'm not ignoring. I'm just getting my chapter done so that way I can catch up with you all. Okay? So we're going to go ahead with chapter 8, A Hidden Place. If you all have any suspicions of what might go on, let me know before I get started. I'm going to take a drink of some Dr. Pepper, so let me know before I get started what you think might happen. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, y'all. So, let's see. Find a secret nook or hidden alley. Those are some good guesses. Let's get started. Chapter 8, A Hidden Place. The northern tip of the Sleeping Kingdom was an ugly and vacant place. It was known for its bare trees, bumpy paths, and dangerously high cliffs. Small stones were scattered on the earth, making it nearly impossible to travel to by carriage. Even though it rained every so often, nothing ever grew, making it impossible for any animals to live there. In the middle of this dry and deserted place was a small castle surrounded by a deep and empty moat. It was ancient and made of dark bricks, wooden doors, and had been through years of decay. No one knew who had built this castle or why it had been built, but then again, very few people even knew of its existence. The inside of the castle was covered in a thick layer of dust, cobwebs almost as old as the castle were on every windowsill, even though there were no spiders to be found. All the rooms and corridors were empty except for the occasional decrepit chair or table placed in a corner. A great hall completed the eastern wing of the castle. Floor-length windows bordered the hall, letting in a lot of light. They were so old that the glass distorted the outside world. The castle couldn't have been a less desirable place to be, but for one woman, it was the perfect place to hide. Somehow, the evil queen had escaped the dungeons of Snow White's palace. She managed to get a hold of her magic mirror and traveled to a place where she knew she would never be found. The castle acted as a perfect sanctuary where she could finish the work she had started so long ago. The evil queen was not a stranger to this place. Over the last century or so, many people had come to the castle, but only she and a few others were fortunate enough to have left it, including someone the former queen had not seen in a great while. She had recently sent word to this old friend, asking him to come and aid her, and so she waited for him to arrive, knowing that he would any day now, for he owed her his life. The evil queen stood facing her magic mirror with open palms and closed eyes. She was quite calm for being the most wanted woman alive. To her right, resting on a short stool, was the heart of a stone she had always kept close. Although it was one of the few most infamous objects in all of the kingdoms, very few people had ever seen the evil queen's magic mirror. Many believed it was made of glamorous materials like gold and diamonds, and glass so pure no one would swear they could walk through it. In reality, the mirror was tall and wide with a black frame that peaked at the top. Tangled vines made of the cast iron wove through the frame. The reflection was cloudy, as if it were a glass doorway into a very cold and foggy place. Although there was very little moisture in the air, perspiration dripped down the glass. The evil queen opened her eyes and gazed deep into the mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, how long till the huntsman answers my call?" she asked. The ghostly silhouette of a man appeared in the reflection. It spoke slowly and softly with a low and hoarse voice. "While my queen awaits, an old friend, once dear, the huntsman travels very near." Okay, sorry. The man in the mirror slowly faded away. Within moments, three loud knocks came from the other side of the great hall doors. "You may enter," the evil queen said. The doors opened, creaking terribly, and a man entered the hall. He was tall, broad, and just on the verge of old age. He wore a variety of animal skins and had a limp in his right leg. His beard was light brown and graying, a crossbow was attached to his back, and a large hunting knife hung from his waist. "My huntsman has returned," the evil queen said. The huntsman walked across the hall to where the evil queen was standing. "It's been a long time since I last saw your face," she said, "and I still find it hard to stomach looking at you." The huntsman fell to his knees and wept at her feet. "Your Majesty," the huntsman cried, "please forgive me, for I have never forgiven myself after failing you." The evil queen looked down at him coldly. She had no sympathy left inside her for anyone. "After all you had done for me, and after all the mercy you had shown me, I could not kill the princess in the forest," the huntsman said. "And just look at all the pain it has caused you. Had I just done as you asked, you would still be queen." The evil queen let his pathetic sobs continue for a while longer. She showed no signs of forgiveness. He deserved to feel this way. She stepped away from the huntsman and peered through a window at the lifeless land that surrounded them. "You and I were both prisoners in this castle once," the evil queen said. "I never imagined that one day it would act as my only refuge." "You saved me," the huntsman said. "I surely would have died here, had it not been for you. That is why I swore to you then that I would do anything to assist you with your mission, but I failed you. And after all this time, I am still on the same mission as I was back then. So do not cry, old friend. I have called you here for a chance at redemption." She walked back to him and gently placed a hand on his cheek. The huntsman stopped crying and looked up at the queen with huge, sad eyes. Sorry. "Redemption?" the huntsman asked. "You mean, Your Majesty, you're still giving me a chance to serve you after what I've done?" The huntsman's tears quadrupled in size, and he continued sobbing. "Curse this world for claiming you to be anything less than the saint you are. I'd kill every person who's tarnished your name if I could." "That won't be necessary," the evil queen said. "I have another task for you. It requires a great deal of traveling, and since being the most wanted fugitive alive prevents me from doing it myself, I've called you here." The huntsman grew quiet and lowered his head shamefully. "Your Greatness," he said, "I have grown too old to travel. I can barely walk as it is." The evil queen looked down at him with an angry brow. "You imbecile," she said, raising her voice. "You mean to tell me you traveled all the way here to tell me you are useless?" The huntsman rose to his feet with difficulty. "Not at all, my queen," he said. "Please let me explain. I am far too old to serve you, but my daughter is able and willing to help you complete what I cannot." "Daughter?" the evil queen asked. The doors at the end of the hall opened again. This time a woman entered, dragging a large wagon behind her. She was tall and thin, with hair so dark red it seemed to have a violet tint. Her eyes were bright green, and her clothing was made entirely of plants and leaves and other greenery. The wagon she pulled contained a large square object. It was large and flat, and covered in silk cloth for safety. After seeing her, the evil queen could recall a time many years ago when she had known the huntsman's daughter. She had always been a shy little girl, and had lived with her father in the palace when the evil queen was on the throne. "We've grown up," the evil queen said. The huntsman's daughter nodded in her direction. "You will speak when I address you," the evil queen demanded. "My daughter is mute, Your Majesty," the huntsman said. "She's never said a word in her life. However silent she may be, it does not make her any less capable of doing what you ask. She brought you a gift to prove herself." The huntsman's daughter carefully removed the object from her wagon and gently placed it beside the queen's magic mirror. Once it was positioned correctly, she removed the silk. It was a mirror, smaller than the magic mirror. It was circular, with flowers engraved into a square, golden frame. The evil queen knew exactly what it was the second it was revealed. "The Mirror of Truth," she said. The former queen had acquired it during her reign. It was another magic mirror that showed one true self when one stood before it. "How did you get this?" the evil queen asked. "She broke into the palace to retrieve it for you," the huntsman said. The evil queen touched the Mirror of Truth frame. She had forgotten the detail in the carvings. She turned and faced the huntsman's daughter. "You shall be my huntress," the evil queen declared. The huntress bowed and kissed the queen's hand. "What is the task at hand, Your Majesty?" the huntsman asked. "Have either of you heard of the wishing spell?" the evil queen asked. The huntsman and the huntress curiously looked at each other. "No, my queen," the huntsman said, "unless you are speaking of the old foolish fable." "The very one," she said. "I never took it seriously until I recently heard a prisoner in the dungeon mumbling about it moments before his execution. According to the foolish fable, after a group of select objects are collected, and placed together, the collector is granted one wish. It doesn't matter how great or small, the wish is guaranteed to be granted, and as you know, I have a wish to be granted. You want my daughter to collect those items for you, then? The huntsman asked. Precisely, the evil queen said. From what I have learned, the task is very dangerous, and may take some time. But if she succeeds, I will consider whatever debt you owed me diminished. The huntsman looked to his daughter, and the huntress nodded. Very well, he said. She will do it. What are the items you seek, my queen? The evil queen took her place before her magic mirror, extended her open palms, and gazed deep inside it. Mirror, mirror on the wall, what must we seek for the wishing spell that grants all? She asked. The ghostly silhouette appeared again. Glass that housed a lonely soul up till midnight's final toll. A saber from the deepest sea, meant for a groom's mortality. The bark of a basket held in fright while running from a bark with bite. A stony crown that's made to share, found deep within a savage lair. A needle that pierced the lovely skin of a princess with beauty found within. A wavy lock of golden rope that once was freedom's only hope. Glittering jewels whose value increased after preserving the false deceased. Teardrops of a maiden fairy feeling, neither magical nor merry. There you have it, the evil queen said to the huntsman and the huntress, but the magic mirror was not finished. But listen to this, my fair queen, for I offer you a fair warning. For one wish you are willing to pay any price, unaware that the wishing spell can only happen twice. And the spell can only happen once more, for it was already used once before. In this castle, as we stand, a duo move throughout the land. A younger brother and sister collect at a quick pace, and may defeat my queen in the wishing spell race. The man in the mirror faded away, leaving the queen with the worst possible news. Not only was someone else finding after the object she needed, but if they were used before she could collect them, the spell could never be used again. She closed her eyes and thought about what her next move would be. She couldn't afford any more odds stacked against her. After a lifetime of work, she wasn't about to let two children stand in her way. I want you to start retrieving the items, the evil queen said to the huntress. I will handle the brother and sister. Now leave me. The huntsman and the huntress bowed, and left the queen alone in the great hall. The evil queen stood before the mirror of truth. Years of being a prisoner had taken its toll on her appearance. It was painful for her to see the aged woman who was reflection had become. She picked up her heart of stone and examined it closely, lightly stroking its sides. The evil queen looked back up at the mirror of truth. This time there was no reflection of the disheveled woman she had grown into. This time the face staring back at her was a youthful one. It belonged to a beautiful young maiden with pale skin and long dark hair. She wore a long white dress with a matching ribbon tied around her waist and was also holding the heart of stone. The girl smiled, but the evil queen did not smile back. She knew the girl in the mirror very well, and she was not Snow White. Okay, so that was the end of chapter 8. Now, we didn't get anything from Connor and Alex, but we got some more stuff. So I'm going to give you all a minute to sit and think about that for a second. You all can give me a bit. I will be right back, and we will get back to reading. See you in a bit. Alright, guys, we are back. So sorry about that. Okay. Just fixing that up. So, what did you all think of chapter 8? How do you think that went? No. Here you go. So what did you all think of chapter 8? How did you think that went? So we didn't find a secret nook or hidden alley, but we learned of a secret castle. So how is that? We gotta get more huntsman perspective. Okay, you think we're gonna get more huntsman? Well, remember, it's now huntress because it's the daughter of the huntsman who is going to be doing the traveling. So the next chapter is chapter 9, The Charming Kingdom. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Charming Kingdom is Cinderella's land. Cinderella. That's where she is. So what do you all think of that? That chapter was a pretty short chapter, in all honesty. Watch her befriend them. You never know. More than likely she could. She better not play my boy Connor. That's funny. We don't know because we actually don't know how old she is, remember. Depending on how fast I can get through this chapter, we might be able to read one more after. But if not, it looks like this coming chapter might be the last one for this stream. Because I do have somewhere to go after in a while, like another hour or so. So we will see. Because it looks like chapter 10 is a pretty long chapter as well. Yeah, okay. So we will see. For now, we're going to go on to chapter 9, A Charming Kingdom, or The Charming Kingdom. So, Cel, you believe that she is going to befriend the children. Okay, we shall see. We shall see. Hopefully nothing bad happens to them. And let's get going. Chapter 9, The Charming Kingdom. Alex and Connor woke up on the floor of Rapunzel's tower just after sunrise. They were snuggled under the blankets Froggy had given them, and they'd used their bags as pillows. How did you sleep? Alex asked her brother. Like I slept on the floor of a tower, Connor said, thinking he'd never take his bed at home for granted again. He stretched his back and his joints made sounds like firecrackers. They put away their blankets and decided to get an early start on their day. Alex insisted on tidying up the tower, leaving it in better condition than they had found it. I'd hate for anyone to think we made this mess, Alex said. Connor rolled his eyes at her and made sure she saw it. What's our next stop? Connor asked Alex. She looked back and forth from the map in one hand and the journal in the other. Well, the Charming Kingdom is just east of here, Alex said. I'd figured it'd be wisest to go there and see if we can get a hold of Cinderella's slipper. And how exactly are we going to do that? Connor asked. Alex had to think about it. We'll just ask if we can borrow it, she decided. Fat chance, Connor said. That's like walking into the White House and asking for the Declaration of Independence. Although Connor was wrong about the whereabouts of the Declaration of Independence, Alex knew he was right to be concerned. How were they going to get their hands on one of Cinderella's slippers? Surely they must be the most prized possessions of the kingdom. We'll have to try our best, Alex said. What other option do we have? The twins traveled down the spiral staircase in the core of Rapunzel's tower and returned to the path. They eventually came to a fork where the new path splintered off in an eastern direction. The sign above the fork said Charming Kingdom and pointed in the direction the new path was headed. Connor, look at the sign, said Alex, pressing her hands against her cheeks. Now I really wish I had a camera. They traveled down the new path for quite a while without discovering anything new, but the same dirt path and evergreen trees they had seen for the last 2 days. Connor became more anxious the farther he walked, letting out large extended sighs every minute or so. Are you sure we aren't lost? I swear I've seen that boulder and that tree about 20 times already, he said, pointing. I'm positive we're traveling in the right direction. I've been watching the map since we left, Alex said. We should be approaching a stream very soon, and once we cross it, we'll be in the Charming Kingdom. Connor sighed again. It would be his last one for a while, so he made sure it lasted extra long. A couple hours later, there was no stream in sight. Connor was starting to lose faith in his sister's navigational abilities. This place must be bigger than we thought, Alex said, or this map is completely off scale. Eventually, the twins found the stream Alex had seen on the map. The path went across a small bridge made out of pale stones and then continued on to the other side. You see, I told you I knew what I was doing, Alex said with her head held high. Yeah, Connor said. Honestly, Connor, I'm a little disappointed in your lack of faith, Alex gloated. If there's one place I should know my way around it would have to be... I don't know how to make that sound. Grrr. That sounds funny. Grrr. Connor heard his sister's high-pitched scream before he realized what had happened. A large troll had jumped right in front of them on the bridge. He was short and very wide, with an enormous head. He was covered in matted fur with large eyes and a snout. His arms and legs were tiny, but his nails and teeth were sharp and long. You are on my bridge, the troll shouted. How dare you? We're so sorry, said Alex, clutching onto her brother like a monkey to a tree. We had no idea this bridge belonged to anyone. Maybe you should put up a sign or something, Connor suggested, and then regretted it once it made the troll even angrier. What are you doing on my bridge? The troll demanded. Trying to cross into the Charming Kingdom? Alex said. We didn't mean any harm. No one crosses my bridge without answering a riddle, the troll said. A riddle? Alex asked, letting go of Connor. Oh, you're a bridge troll. A bridge troll? Connor asked. Yes, just like in Three Billy Goats Gruff, Alex said, happily. She was so excited to be witnessing another fairy tale occurrence, all her fear faded away. If you wish to cross my bridge, you must answer my riddle correctly, the bridge troll said. Answer incorrectly, and I'll bite off your head. Excuse me, bite off our heads? Connor said. Steam was practically coming from his ears. What is wrong with everyone in this place? Why does everyone we meet want to eat us? Can someone please explain to me why this keeps happening? Connor, calm down, Alex insisted. Let's just solve the riddle and then we'll be on our way. What if we get the riddle wrong? Connor said. He'll kill us. Let's just find another way across the stream. Connor, don't be silly. If a simple billy goat can answer a riddle correctly, I'm sure we can too, Alex reassured him. Besides, there isn't another bridge for miles. Connor grunted and crossed his arms. How are we so sure that this is actually his bridge? Connor said. I'd like to see some ownership identification before we continue. Alex ignored this. What's your riddle, Mr. Bridge Troll? She asked. May I call you Mr. Bridge Troll? The bridge troll, eyed the twins and jauntily swayed from side to side as he began the riddle. What can be small as a pea or as large as the sky and is not owned by the person who purchases it? It asked. The wheels in Alex's head began turning immediately. She loved riddles. That's a tricky one, Alex said, and pressed her index finger against her lips as she thought. Do you have any guesses, Connor? Nope, you're on your own, Connor said. You have one guess before I bite off your head, so guess wisely, the bridge troll said, doing a small dance and clapping his hand. That's it. I'm out of here, Connor said. He walked off the bridge and slowly made his way down to the stream. Connor, what are you doing? I'm crossing the stream, Connor yelled back. No bridge is worth that much trouble. He slowly stepped into the stream and began traveling across it. The water was freezing, but his frustration kept him warm enough that it didn't matter. The water rose higher and higher as he traveled further across it. The current isn't even that strong. It's not that deep, Alex, Connor said. He reached the middle of the stream, and the deepest water came to just above his waist. You're cheating, Alex said, and then asked the bridge troll, is that even allowed? Can he do that? He isn't the one who asked for the riddle. You are, the bridge troll said. Connor had crossed the stream by now and was soaking wet. Alex continued thinking about the riddle. So it can be as small as a pea and as large as the sky. So basically you're telling me it can be any size, and the person who buys it doesn't own it. So that means someone else owns it, she thought out loud. Hurry up, Alex, Connor shouted. Oh, hush, Alex said. I'm going to say that it must be a gift. A gift can be any size, and the receiver is who owns it, but the person who purchased it, not the person who purchases it. The bridge troll stopped swinging from side to side and slumped over. That is correct, the bridge troll said disappointingly. You may pass. Alex clapped her hands together and did a small jump. She extended her hand out to offer the troll a handshake, but he ignored it. Instead, he crawled back below to wherever he had jumped out from. See, Alex said once she met up with her brother on the other side of the bridge. I knew I'd answered correctly. Connor shook his head. And I'm sure I'll have to hear about it for the rest of our lives, he said, but let's try to make it to Cinderella's palace by sundown, okay? The twins continued their journey into the charming kingdom. They were excited to see different scenery as they traveled. The evergreen trees they had seen so much of become scarce and were slowly replaced by large oak trees. There were also vast fields of tall grass and wildflowers everywhere they looked. It's so beautiful here, Alex said. They had been walking for hours and still saw no sign of anything. Connor was practically dry by now. Where is everything? Connor asked. The Charming Kingdom is a very big place, Alex said. It's going to take a while to get to the palace. It began to get dark, and the twins became very worried. There was no shelter in sight. Soon, the moon was their only source of light. They walked a short distance off the path and found a grassy area among a few trees that they had assumed and hoped was safe, and they decided to spend the night there. Connor tried making a fire by rubbing two sticks together, but was unsuccessful. Now I really wish I had signed up for Boy Scouts, he said. It was their first night sleeping outside. Both kept waking up every hour or so to make sure they were still safe, because every sound terrified them. What was that? Alex gasped in the middle of the night. That's an owl, Connor said, or a very inquisitive dove. But either way, I think we're safe. The next morning, the sunrise woke them. They restlessly got to their feet and returned to the path. We're running out of food, Alex said after eating one of their last apples. We'll have to stock up as soon as we find a market or something. I'm so tired of rolls and apples. I'm starting to think we should have asked Froggy to pack us some flies, Connor said. Gosh, I would have killed for a cheeseburger. Maybe that's why everyone eats each other here. They just haven't discovered fast food yet. They found a small pond on the side of the path and splashed some water on their faces. We look so tired, said Alex, looking at their reflections in the water. The twins heard galloping sound coming from behind them on the path. They turned to see a small cart of firewood being pulled by a gray horse. It was steered by a man with a big, floppy green hat. Let's ask him how much further into the palace, Alex said, and ran over to the cart. Excuse me, sir. Sorry, guys, I needed water. My throat was getting dry. Also, for Holtz, hi, I'm reading The Land of Stories, The Wishing Spell. It's the first book in a series. It's by Chris Colfer. It's a very good book. This was a community challenge that was asked for by my community. They raised all the points, so now I'm reading the book. I did stop in the middle of the chapter, but that's because my throat was going dry and I was not able to read anymore. So we're going to continue on. They had just found someone who is also on the path, and they are asking him where they're going. So we'll continue from there. Excuse me, sir. Whoa, the man said, slowing his horse to a stop. May I help you? How much further until we reach Cinderella's palace? Alex asked. Are you traveling by foot? The man asked. Unfortunately, Connor said. Then it'll take you days to get there, the man said. Alex and Connor looked at each other, completely exasperated. I'm delivering this firewood near the palace tonight, the man said. I can give you a ride if you'd like. Before he could finish his sentence, Connor had climbed aboard the cart. Thank you so much, Alex said. That is so kind of you. The twins traveled with the man for the rest of the day. Connor made himself comfortable on top of the firewood and napped almost the entire trip, waking up every so often whenever they hit a bump in the road. Alex, on the other hand, took full advantage of having an actual human to talk to from the fairy tale world. What's your name? Alex asked the man. Smithers, the man said. Where are you from? She asked. I grew up in a small village in the northeastern part of the charming kingdom, Smithers said. What's it like here? Alex said dreamily. My brother and I haven't been around this kingdom very much. The Charming Kingdom is a quiet place, Smithers said. It has many small villages on the outskirts of the kingdom, and many wealthy estates in the center near the palace. Have you ever been to the palace before? Alex asked. Oh, yes. I make deliveries there during the year. In fact, tonight the king and queen are having a huge ball. They are? Alex's eyes doubled in size. She shook Connor awake. Connor, did you hear that? Cinderella's having a ball tonight. Isn't that wonderful? What are the chances? What? Oh, that's great, Connor said, and then immediately fell back asleep. Why are they having a ball? Alex asked. They've had one every month since their wedding, Smithers said. It's a celebration of their marriage. What's Queen Cinderella like? She asked. Absolutely beautiful, and the best queen our kingdom has ever had, Smithers said with a big grin. Not too many people were eager to accept her when she first moved into the palace, though. Many of the aristocratic families were upset that Prince Charming hadn't chosen one of their daughters to wed. But she's overcome all that since. Alex could tell they were getting much closer to the palace. They passed more smaller villages, which grew in size and population as they went along. She was so excited to be so close to people, actual people, who had spent their entire lives in the fairy tale world. She wished with all her heart that she could say she'd grown up in the Charming Kingdom. Do you ever find it overwhelming? Alex asked Smithers. Does it ever get frightening living here and knowing that at any moment a fairy could fly by and grant you a wish, or an ogre could run up and eat you? Smithers looked at her curiously. Does such a place exist where people can't unexpectedly be helped or hurt? Alex couldn't think of any. Maybe this world and the world she was from weren't so different after all. The cart began passing large estates. Everywhere they looked, they saw another huge, elegant home. They were all so bright and colorful, with pointed roofs that curved on the sides. Some were made from wood, others from brick, and some were covered completely in ivy. It was something straight out of a storybook, and Alex kept reminding herself that she was in one. We're almost at the palace, Smithers said. The cart began to vibrate as the dirt path beneath them turned into cobblestone street. Shops and markets started popping up on the sides of the street as they traveled into the city. They shared the road with other carts and carriages. Villagers and townspeople alike walked alongside them, and went about their day-to-day routines of shopping and trade. Are we there yet? Said Connor, staring back to life. The cart rounded a corner onto a very long and wide street. At the end of the street was an enormous palace. I'll take that as a yes, Connor said. The palace took Alex's breath away. It was perfectly symmetrical and smooth, as if it were made out of sky-gray porcelain. 3 prominent towers in the middle of the palace shared a base with a gigantic clock large enough for the whole kingdom to see. The palace almost seemed fake. It was so majestic and was grander than they had ever imagined. This is where I'll drop you off, said Smithers, pulling his cart and horse over to the side of the street. Best of luck to the both of you youngins. Enjoy the town. Thank you so much, the twins said. They tried to offer him a few gold coins as a thank you, but Smithers said instead insisted that they save their money and then went on his way. The twins walked around the town for a good while. Everyone seemed to be buzzing with anticipation for the ball later that evening. They found a small market and were able to purchase fresh fruit, vegetables, and breads. Alex kept trying to make small talk with every person she encountered, but most of the townspeople ignored her. Connor kept rolling his eyes at his sister. Everything she saw excited her. I don't know how I'm going to survive traveling with you if you keep up this constant state of excitement, Connor said. It's exhausting and it's really getting on my nerves. I'm sorry, Alex said. We've been around so many trees the last couple of days. I'm just so excited to see all the people on there. Oh, look at that doorknob on the building. It's in the shape of a slipper. Isn't that cute? After a busy afternoon of sightseeing, they found a quiet hill that overlooked the town, and they sat under the shade of a large tree. The sun was starting to descend, and the twins grew anxious at the thought of another day ending. "What's our plan?" Connor asked. "Let's see what the journal suggests," Alex said, and pulled it out from her school bag. She flipped through the pages until she came across the section about the glass slipper. Cinderella's glass slipper is a very difficult item to retrieve. Her slippers, without a doubt, are the most cherished possession of the kingdom. First, you must find a way into the palace. This is rather difficult, as there is only one entrance. One of Cinderella's first acts as queen was to get rid of all the servant entrances so that when people come to the palace, they all enter as equals. Once inside, find a way into Cinderella's royal display room. This will also be difficult, since no one is allowed in the queen's chambers without an invitation from her. The slippers are on display in a glass box on the top of a pillar in the center of the room. The slippers are not hard to remove from inside the glass box, but the room is under constant watch by 2 guards at its entrance. Find a way to be alone in the royal display room and remove a slipper quietly and quickly. Leave as fast as you can, because as soon as they notice something is missing, the guards will close the palace doors and you'll be trapped and taken to the dungeon to be hung upside down from your toenails. Best of luck. How are we going to get into the palace? Connor asked. Alex began to think of a plan, but she was distracted by the long line of carriages driving down the main street of the town toward the palace. They were elegant and colorful, and each was of its own design. Each carriage had at least 2 horses pulling it, a coachman, a footman riding on the back, and the number of passengers inside it. "The ball," Alex said. "We'll have to sneak into the ball." "Uh-huh," said Connor, contemplating this information. "And what are we supposed to wear? Look at us. We're not dressed formally enough, and I bet we smell really fresh after walking for 3 days straight with no showers." "I have no idea," Alex said. She opened their bags and took out their blankets. She grabbed hold of Connor and began wrapping the blanket around him, folding it strategically in certain places so it would stay up. Alex wrapped herself in the other blanket. "There, now we look like we're wearing sensible robes." "We look ridiculous," Connor said. "Do you have any other ideas?" Alex asked him. "Do you think there's a fairy godmother hotline we could call?" Connor asked. The twins walked down to the main street. They followed the traffic of carriages towards the palace. The closer they came to the palace, the larger it grew, and the more real it became. Many of the coachmen glared at the twins with bewildered and judgmental looks. A few passengers leaned out of the carriage windows to see what the twins were doing. "Take a picture, it'll last longer," Connor shouted at them. "Connor, they don't know what that means," Alex said. They reached the palace just as the sun was setting. As each carriage reached near the front steps of the palace entrance, its footman would run around the carriage and gently help the passengers out. Alex and Connor had never seen such beautiful clothing. All the women wore long ball gowns of various colors, fabrics, and stitching. They wore gloves and diamonds. Some wore bows and feathers in their hair. The men all dressed beautifully too, some in formal armor, some in suits with broad, fringed shoulders and square cuffs. All the effort and flair that guests had put into their appearance made the twins feel very insecure about their impromptu robes. They stuck out like sore thumbs. They were the youngest people there, and they were the only ones not dressed in lace or satin. They were the only ones carrying bags. They looked exactly like what they were, a couple of kids sneaking into a ball. An extensive row of steps led up to the palace's entrance. Alex and Connor began climbing with the rest of the attendees. It was such a climb, they wondered if they would even reach the top of it. "The world has goblins and fairies, but where's an escalator when you need one?" Connor said. "Connor, look at this!" She pointed at the silver star placed in the steps underneath their feet. It said, "This marks the very place where Cinderella left her glass slipper behind on the night she met Prince Charming." "Can you believe that's the very spot Cinderella left her glass slipper?" Alex said, with both hands pressed against her heart. "Absolutely," Connor said. "I wouldn't have climbed these steps again if I had left my shoe here either." The twins caused quite a scene at the entrance. Everyone was absolutely appalled by their clothing. Alex could feel herself blushing from the way everyone was staring at her. She felt like she was back at school. One palace guard in particular couldn't stop staring at them, not in a judgmental way, but as if he had seen them somewhere before and couldn't remember where. He was just standing just a step inside the palace entrance, and he greeted all the guests as they passed. He wore more badges on his uniform than any of the other guards, and he had a very thin, dark beard. Another palace guard was collecting invitations at the doors. The twins began to panic. What are we going to do? Alex whispered to her brother. Let me handle this, Connor said. I saw this in a movie once. Just go with it. Invitations, please, the guard said. Our parents have our invitations, but they're already inside. And who are your parents? Guard asked the guard snootily. Who are our parents? Yelled Connor, causing a bigger scene that they already had. You mean you don't know who we are? All the guards and guests looked among one another. Connor, calm down, Alex said. What was he thinking? This man doesn't know who our parents are, Alex. All of you know that our parents invented wishing wells. How dare you show us any disrespect? Alex wanted to slap, and she looked apologetically at the people around them. They all scowled at the twins in the direction, except for the guard with the thin beard. He was actually smirking at them with gentleness in his eyes. I'm afraid you two have to leave now, said the guard, collecting the invitations. Leave? You're making the heirs to the wishing well fortune leave? Connor exclaimed loudly enough for everyone to hear. Connor, just shut up, Alex whispered directly into his ear. Is there a problem? The guard with the thin beard asked as he approached the twins. Not at all, Alex said, and began backing up, forcing Connor to move with her. They don't have an invitation. The other guard said. We are just leaving, Alex said. Sorry for the confusion. Nonsense, the guard with the thin beard said. I just saw your parents inside the palace. Why don't I take you to them? Alex and Connor froze. You did? Connor said, and then quickly remembered that he had to keep up with his own line. Of course you did. He threw a dirty look at the other guard. Come with me and I'll take you straight to your parents, the guard with the thin beard said. Before they knew it, Alex and Connor were being escorted into the palace. They were completely in over their heads. Did this guard know they were lying? And was he now escorting them directly to the dungeon? Or perhaps Connor's lie was truer than they thought, and they were about to meet a couple who were definitely not their parents. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sir Lambton, the head of the Queen's Royal Guard. Welcome to the palace. Thank you. I'm Connor Wishington, and this is my sister, Alex. Where are you from, Mr. and Mrs. Wishington? Mr. and Miss Wishington? Lambton asked. Upstate Northern Kingdom, Connor said. Even he looked surprised by the words coming out of his mouth. But our parents have a summer home in the south of the Sleeping Kingdom and a condo in the Fairy Kingdom. Alex's eyes opened so wide she had to remind herself to blink. Ah, I see. Would you like me to take your bags for you? No, that's quite all right, Alex said. We'll manage. Lambton led the twins down a long hallway behind all the other guests. There were many large portraits of past rulers on the wall, and a red carpet ran under their feet. Alex and Connor were all eyes. They had never been inside a royal palace before. There were so many shiny things to look at. Lambton seemed to be enjoying their excitement. He leaned between them and softly said, You're sneaking into the palace, aren't you? Alex desperately looked at Connor, but he was out of lies for the night. Please don't throw us in the dungeon, Alex pleaded. We didn't mean any harm. Connor looked at his sister with a raised eyebrow. Did she mean no harm besides breaking into the palace and stealing a cherished item? Lambton chuckled. I've seen a lot of youngsters try to sneak into the royal ball before. But never have I been so entertained by an attempt. So you aren't going to throw us into a cell and hang us upside down by our toenails? Connor asked. We stopped doing that ages ago, Lambton said. On the contrary, it'd be my honor to show you two around. Really? Connor said. That would be lovely, Alex said, clasping her hands together. Thank you. At the end of a hall, Lambton led the twins through a pair of golden doors in the ballroom. At first, the sight was overwhelming. There were so many things to look at. It was impossible to focus on any one thing long enough to comprehend what it was. There was so much movement and color, the biggest chandelier they had ever seen, with thousands of candles hung from the ceiling above an enormous dance floor. Hundreds of formally dressed men and women filled the space. Some mingled on the sides, while others danced to the music played by a small orchestra in the corner. Everything from the archways to the accents on the walls was golden. A grand staircase descended in the back of the room just behind two empty thrones. Connor knew it would only be a few seconds before Alex started crying. It's so beautiful, Alex said with teary eyes. Is this where they had the ball where Cinderella and the prince met? Indeed, Lambton said. I'll never forget it. I was just a simple guard back then. The prince was meeting all the young women in the kingdom in hopes of finding a bride. Cinderella was the last to arrive that night. She entered the room just as we are now, and everyone stopped to look at her. How did she look? Alex asked. Magical, Lambton said, with a smile lost in his own memory. She wore a long violet dress that sparkled as she walked. I remember hearing the soft taps of her glass slippers as she walked past. As soon as the prince saw her, it was love at first sight. The whole palace could feel it. Suddenly, a man blew a trumpet at the foot of the grand staircase. "Ladies and gentlemen," the man with the trumpet announced, "it is with great honor that I welcome you to the royal ball this evening. Now please give a warm welcome to their royal majesties King Charming and Queen Cinderella." The guests cheered and burst into applause. The royal couple entered the ballroom, slowly making their way down the grand staircase. Alex grabbed onto Connor's arm. "Connor," Alex gasped, "it's Cinderella! It's Cinderella!" Although the twins had only seen illustrations of her, Cinderella was more beautiful than they had ever expected. Her hair was auburn and styled up behind a crystal tiara. She wore white gloves, and a long turquoise gown flowed down around her, accentuating her pregnant belly. Despite all the gold and the glorious chandelier, her eyes and smile were the brightest things in the room. King Charming was the definition of dashing. He was every bit handsome as any description ever written about him. He was mesmerizing smile and thick, wavy hair under a large golden crown. He could easily have been a movie star back in the twins' world. The king and queen took their seats at the thrones, and the guard with the trumpet blew the opening notes of another announcement. "Let the ball begin," the guard with the trumpet proclaimed, and was greeted with another round of excited applause. The majority of the guests rushed past to the dance floor. The orchestra began playing a fast-paced symphony. All the guests paired up and began waltzing around the room, each looking lovingly into their partner's eyes the entire time. The king and queen remained seated. You could tell Cinderella wanted to join the dance, but her pregnancy was preventing her from doing so. King Charming only had eyes for his wife. He was enjoying her watching the dance more than the actual dance itself. At one point, one of the dancing men collected a shoe from their partners and circled them with it before placing it back on their feet. A Cinderellian tribute, no doubt. Time flew by as the twins watched the ball. The unborn child Cinderella was carrying must have been kicking from all the excitement. Cinderella appeared to have some discomfort and had been rubbing her belly and shifting in her seat for some time. She eventually whispered something in King Charming's ear. King Charming took his wife's hand and carefully helped her back up the grand staircase. The guard blew his trumpet again. "The queen is tired and wishes to rest, but she and the king welcome you to continue the celebration without their presence." The crowd happily obliged and continued their fun. "Would you like a tour of the palace?" Lambton asked the twins. "More than anything," Alex said. Lambton escorted the twins out of the ballroom, down a hall to the similar one they had first entered the palace through. It, too, was a home to several portraits of the past rulers and a long red carpet. "This palace was built over 500 years ago," Lambton told them as he walked. "It's been home to the Charming dynasty since then. This is a portrait of King Chester Charming, Cinderella's late father-in-law." He referred to a large painting of an old bearded man with a crown. He looked exactly like his son, but much older. "How many King Charmings have there been?" Connor asked. "We've lost count," Lambton said. "There are 3 currently. King Chester had 4 sons. Chance Charming, Chase Charming, Planet Charming, and Charlie Charming. Each of the Charming brothers had his own portrait on the wall. King Chance Charming is the oldest and is married to Queen Cinderella," Lambton said, and gestured to the portrait of the man they had just seen in the ballroom. "King Chase Charming is the second oldest and married to Queen Sleeping Beauty." Lambton continued. "Chase looked exactly like his brother, except he was a bit taller and wore a goatee. King Chandler Charming is the third oldest and is married to Queen Snow White," Lambton said. Chandler looked like his brothers but had the longest hair of them all. The last portrait in the hallway caught the twins' eye the most. It was hung slightly away from the rest and depicted the youngest of the Charming brothers. He was young and had a big smile. A single candle was lit beside the portrait. It appeared to be a memorial of sorts. "Who is that?" Connor asked Lambton. Lambton's happy expression faded away. "That's Prince Charlie, the 4th king of King Chester. He's the long-lost Charming prince. He vanished one night many years ago, and no one ever saw him again." "That's horrible," Alex said. "His brothers led massive search parties throughout all the kingdoms, but they never found a trace of him. Fortunately, some good came out of the search. While on the road, Prince Chandler came across Snow White in her glass coffin, and Prince Chase discovered Sleeping Beauty asleep in her castle, and they both broke the spells put on them and were married." "That's incredible." "So if Prince Charlie ever went missing, Sleeping Beauty and Snow White would still be unconscious." "That may be," Lambton said. "Since his brothers took all the eligible princes, Prince Chance had to put on a ball where he met Cinderella. Everything happens for a reason, I suppose." Alex and Connor couldn't stop staring at the portrait of Prince Charlie. There was a sad energy in this part of the hallway, and the twins were especially sensitive to it. The long-lost prince couldn't have been much older than them when he'd gone missing. Lambton clearly appreciated the twins' entrance. "Now follow me. I have something very special I want to show you," Lambton said. Lambton led the twins down another hall that led deeper into the palace. This part of the palace was completely vacant, and it made the twins more and more nervous as they walked. They had no idea where Lambton was taking them, and they were too timid to ask. They rounded a corner, and at the end of another long hall, and there was a pair of black double doors. There were 2 guards on either side of the doors, and a large stone arch above them, and a sign that read, "Queen Cinderella's Royal Room of Display." Alex and Connor looked to each other with light in their eyes. They had made it. "Hello, Sir Lambton," one of the guards said. "Good evening," Lambton said. He pushed open the doors, and the twins followed him inside. They set their bags down and looked around the room. The display room was a wide chamber with white pillars and sky-blue tiled floor. The ceiling was domed and covered in golden stars. The room was illuminated by moonlight coming from the large window in the back, and then reflected throughout by a series of hanging mirrors. Several special objects were on display and placed on the top of short pillars and surrounded by thick glass cases. Brooms, buckets, and old raggedy dresses were all put on a show. A family of mice lived in a glass case and a miniature replica of the palace. It is getting a lot harder to read. So you know what? We are going to end up stopping here because I cannot talk much more longer. So we're going to stop here. I will mark it for next time. We still have actually like a couple of pages until the next chapter. So it will be marked here in the book for next time. So do not worry. It's marked. I will go ahead and leave you all with that. We're going to go ahead and raid someone. So let's see if there's anyone on right now so we can go ahead and raid them. Raid it. Channel. Good chapter so far. Ha, thank you. I shall do that. Yeah, my throat is still hurting, but it's fine. It's fine. We're good. We're good. Let's see if there's anyone on right now so we can go ahead and send them a little raid. If you all have any ideas for someone to raid, let me know. And also, Cell, thank you very much for the hydrate. Let's see. You know what? We're going to go ahead and raid Kazu. Because, you know what? Why not? Right?